Hello and welcome to another update. In this one, the main focus point will be Klishchiivka again as the Ukrainian forces continue their attacks in the direction of the village. And a quick notice, my past few videos have been hit with limited or no ads, so make sure to check out my Patreon and PayPal links down in the description. Thank you. So in the past update, we saw that the Ukrainian forces managed to capture these parts to the west of the village, as well as they hold control over the trench network here to the southwest of the city. We can see that there are signs of a trench network here, similar to the, this is actually the one the Russians had to capture to the southwest when they first went to capture the village. And then there's the second one, which is here in the central part to the north of the village, which is what is being fought over right now. There's heavy battles by this trench network to the north of the village. And if we take a look at the deep state map, topographic map, we can see that the area here to the north of the village is actually on the high ground in comparison to the village, and we see that it continuously goes lower and lower elevation, which means that the areas here to the northwest of Klishchiivka, where the trench network is the final high ground in which the Russians have control over in the whole southern flank of Bakhmut. Which would mean that if the Ukrainian forces continue attacking in this direction, then they would always be attacking downhill, which means that generally they would have the advantage as long as they went in the eastern direction to the south of Bakhmut. This is why when the Russian forces started attacking, as soon as they had Klishchiivka, they essentially went all the way up to Ivanivske, because these are all open fields on the same elevation, and then the Ukrainian forces had some elevation to the southwest of Ivanivske, and that was where there was a lot of back and forth. Until then, the Russian forces were essentially having free ground in this whole area, and now we're seeing the reversal of that situation. The Ukrainian forces are having a heavy advantage to the northwest of Klishchiivka because it is a leveled field for them, while the Russian forces will have to fight uphill. This means that if the Russian forces lose Klishchiivka, then they will essentially have a very dangerous situation to the south of the Bakhmut. The entire southern flank will be in huge danger. So it is a very strategically important village for Bakhmut. And that means that the Russian forces are going to do a lot to hold on to it. And according to the latest news that I have received from pro-Russian sources, is that reinforcements have arrived in the Klishchiivka area, and here they tried to push back the Ukrainian forces and counterattack to prevent the Ukrainians from getting a hold of the village. According to the sources, the Russian forces have sent additional tanks, artillery, multi-launch rocket systems, and Ka-52 helicopters, and they're all attacking the Ukrainian forces who are currently attacking the village. And then they're also, on top of this, focusing more units in this area. They're sending further reinforcements, and their air powers are striking the Ukrainian positions in this area. And at the same time, in the northern parts to the south of Berehivka, the Ukrainian forces are also attacking in this direction. And similar to Klishchiivka, Berehivka is an important village in this direction. Although it is located within a valley, the only positions the Russian forces have are by Pereskovivka and to the heights to the north of Berehivka, which means that if the Ukrainian forces manage to capture Berehivka, then they are able to threaten the heights to the north of Berehivka, which would essentially cut off Dubovo-Vasilivka from all of its supplies, and they'll be able to capture this whole area to the south of the E40 highway, and the whole highway would be under threat of Ukrainian forces. They can then push northwards into Selesnyansk and essentially the whole Bakhmutska river line to the north of the city of Bakhmut. So the Ukrainian forces are doing a two-pronged attack against Bakhmut, of course, to encircle the city, similar to what the Russians were doing in the spring, where they were going around Bakhmut, trying to capture the flanks, and now the Ukrainians are trying to do the opposite. They're trying to counterattack in this counteroffensive to regain positions to the south and to the north of the city, and the Russian forces are trying to hold on, trying to prevent the Ukrainians from doing so. However, in the reverse situation, the Russian forces have already destroyed all the fortifications, In comparison, they are also in the low ground compared to the Ukrainian high ground, which means that the Ukrainians have an advantage despite being the attackers geographically. And all of these things add up to essentially even out the playing field. So the Russian forces are here forced to send reinforcements to Bakhmut, and this could actually be some sort of distraction for the Zaporizhzhia offensive, so that the Ukrainian forces can focus their forces in this part. And I think they're hoping to divert some of the Russian forces, some of the Russian resources to Bakhmut instead, so that they're able to essentially have better success in the Zaporizhzhia front. As for the latest updates on the Zaporizhzhia front, we see that generally the Ukrainian forces continue their attacks. They managed to fully capture the village of Pyatkhy for the third time, and they're now fighting heavily in this direction. There's also fighting to the south of Novodanilivka and to the east of the village, as Ukrainian forces try to expand their zone of control to the south of Odihiv. In this video, I have moved the recap to my archive, and the rest of the recap is for this month. So we only have the recap that has changed this month, the territorial changes. In combination to these areas, the Ukrainian forces are also continuing the attacks by the Remevsky Ledge. However, so far there's no signs of any advances. The Ukrainian forces continue the attacks in the direction of Yeroshine, Staromayorsk and Pryotne, similar to the previous times. And then we have a lot of combat videos as well. Starting out, we have this video here of two AMX-10 wheeled tanks from the French army, and they end up getting hit by artillery, as we see in this video here, and it ends up burning, which indicates that the tank was destroyed and is unusable. Then we also have this video here of a Russian Ka-52 engaging a Ukrainian vehicle, destroying it with its missile strikes. And then finally, we have this Lancet drone here burning a German PZH-2000. And finally, we have this geolocation here by the Deep State Map team. And we see that Ukrainian forces has actually managed to enter into the trench network. But according to the Russian sources here, the Russian forces have actually managed to counterattack and regain control over the trench network area after it being contested by the Ukrainian forces, as we see with this image here showing it. And we see that it is actually a Ukrainian vehicle getting destroyed, which means that they managed to enter it, but they are so far being pushed back. But it is a very dangerous situation for the Russian forces. And then we have this video here. It is a Challenger 2 tank discovered somewhere in the Zaporizhzhia front, which indicates that we are closing in on the time where the Ukrainian forces will launch their main push, their main spearhead across the Zaporizhzhia line, and we'll see them launching their main force of their offensive. And that is going to be all for this update. Thank you all for watching and have a great day.